Welcome to another episode of War Hero to Superhero. We are in the battle room, pressing buttons and launching things that we shouldn't, or maybe we should. So I want to thank you for going over and joining. This week, we always interview war heroes that transform to superheroes. Active Guard Reserve, first responders, sometimes military spouses. Today, we have a Navy reservist that is a registered nurse, active reservist right now, over 10 years in service. I was in medical for like 2 years, and that was just nuts. She's done a decade, and she's going to go talk about her transformational story and share how she's running for Miss Veterans America. Man, they need to make a male version so I can run. Let's see what happens. All right, so let's chat, and we'll bring her in. Hey, Kristin, thanks for joining.
Thank you. How are you, Dan?
Doing well. So we'd love to hear your war hero story. Like we already talked about, you've been in 10 years. Like, why'd you come in the service? What you go over and do? And how's life in the Navy?
Great question. So I actually graduated with my bachelor's degree from DeSales University back in 1998. So I've been a nurse going on 22 years now. But right about 2009, I started getting a little bored with not being a nurse, but I wanted to do something, be a part of something bigger than myself. And I have family members on both sides of my family, my mother and my father, who had served in World War II, in the Army. My grandfather was in the Navy on the destroyer back in World War II. My uncle retired out of the Air National Guard as a lieutenant colonel. And so I kind of felt that the family tradition needed to carry on. And I really liked the idea of being the first woman in my family to serve. So I started the process and took several months. But 2010, I was commissioned into the Navy as a lieutenant junior grade on the battleship New Jersey, and started my Navy career. You know, I've done lots of things. I've slept in tents in the snow and done field medicine in that regard. I've done mass casualty trainings in the pouring rain, Humvee rollovers, and you know, I was deployed to Afghanistan back in 2015. So there was, again, more additional medical training, combat training. So I'm pretty versed in, you know, sleeping in tents and eating MREs and just kind of adapting and overcoming, and the wet boots and, you know, the cold boots and everything that comes along with being out in the field. So I've done and seen a lot in the Navy, and I have, you know, I'm 10 years in and into my naval career. And like I said, 22 years into my nursing career, which is mostly intensive care and trauma nursing, and a good bit of it is pediatrics as well. So I've got a varied nursing background, and I've got a varied Navy experience, if you will. And it's kind of brought me full circle, you know, from the time that I was, you know, a young girl. I'd always wanted to help people and take care of people. And I was always finding stray animals and rescuing them. So being an advocate and helping those who can't help themselves and fighting for those who can't fight for themselves has kind of always been innate in me.
That's really cool. So when you said active reservist, because we were on the back end interviewing before going in. So when you mean active reservist, are you actually activated like on active orders, or are you just serving in the reserve 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year?
So yeah, I'm serving in the reserve, doing my 1 week in a month and 2 weeks a year. And, you know, COVID has kind of hit everybody. So right now we're actually flex drilling. And I was supposed to do some training, some combat medical training in Texas back in June that got canceled. And the other training I was supposed to complete, I did back in August. We did that virtually.
So how have you been dealing with that? So you went from, so you're just doing it 1 week a month, 2 weeks a year, and you're constantly transitioning back to the nursing and everything else. Like, is it a rough transition, or is it a hard transition to be that active reservist? And then you're like, hey, I put on the nursing hat during the week, and then I'm like, now I have to put on a Navy nursing hat during the weekend.
No, the transition isn't that hard. You know, like I said, the bulk of my background is intensive care, intensive care nursing. So I'm used to kind of, you know, the adrenaline rush, running around, my hair on fire, multitasking. And I've been on the front lines in the ICU taking care of, you know, COVID patients. So, you know, I've always been well adept at adapting and overcoming and just kind of making things work, whatever situation I'm in. So, you know, the weekend transition isn't so difficult. I find that I have a harder time transitioning from the military world back into the civilian world because things function very differently in the military than they do in the civilian side.
So in that particular regard, you made a transformation just recently running for Miss Veteran America 2020. You're one of the panelists. So what made you get into this to become this war hero to superhero transformation? Because usually that's not common running. There's a few that are active duty that are running, but you're doing now the active reservist, you're the registered nurse, you're running for this. I'm like, do you ever stop running? I'm just wondering,
No, I like to keep busy. But I actually heard about the contest a couple of years ago from a friend of mine who's a civilian and saw the contest and said, oh my gosh, you would be excellent at this. You should join the contest. And at the time I was in grad school working on my master's degree, which I finished last year. So now that my son's out of high school and I was out of grad school, I figured now is the time to strike while the iron is hot. And so we had the semifinals back in June, and I was really honored and excited that I got picked to be one of the top 25 finalists to move on to the finals. So, the final salute is dedicated to helping homeless women veterans, or try to help prevent them from becoming homeless, because they have 3 different programs to help women. And, Jas Booth, who founded Final Salute, found herself homeless through no fault of her own. And, as most of us veterans would do, we need help. We would go to the VA. And what she found was that the VA programs cater mostly to men. And there's not a lot of programs for women, and even fewer who are single moms like Jas was. So, Final Salute was born out of necessity. And much like we do in the military, we adapt and overcome. And, she, as a mom and, a veteran, she, made the best of the situation. And now she's making a difference. And she's turned her own war hero into a superhero. And she's making superheroes out of all of us. And I'm proud and honored to be fighting for my fellow sisters in arms who have served their country just like men have. And, women have been involved in the war since Revolutionary War time. So it's an honor for me to be able to fight for and help those who can't fight for themselves, because it's important, and there just aren't enough resources out there for women. And the more people I talk to, the more I hear they had no idea that there even was a problem with homeless women veterans. They had no idea that we're the fastest growing population of homeless, and, even fewer resources for women, especially women with children, in terms of women veterans. So we know that 70% of homeless women veterans are single moms. And I know in New Jersey, there are 12 transitional housing spots for homeless women veterans, and none of them accommodate children. So we have some work to do in the state. And I have been working with a senator and a couple of congressmen and some assemblymen, and even the local mayors of my town and the town next to me, in terms of talking about the issue. And I've been working with some other veteran organizations to try to not only raise awareness, but let's talk about the issue and how can we better allocate resources so that we can get, women veterans the help that they need and deserve.
Yeah, that's totally interesting, because I almost went homeless a couple times, and it was the exact opposite problem. Is because me and my wife are married with 4 kids, and it was on the civilian side, women or children are taken care of, and yet the male, like when I was going to go out on military orders, they said, well, if you don't come with us, and it was only the one place in the entire county, they're like, you'll have to find a place yourself. So it was the exact opposite problem. I'm amazed that we as veterans are like, we're not taking care of our ladies. And then on the other side, it's like men. It's like we need to go take both what we did on one side and swap ideas. And it's like, because I was everywhere I went, it was like, oh, this is a women's shelter. This is women with kids shelter. This is this. And I'm like, male homeless? And it's like, oh, no. Wait, sorry. And if you want to actually take care of your family, we only have one. And if you don't register that same day, I'm like, but I'm trying to look for work. So if I don't register at this blocked time. So it's amazing to me that we just need to holistically take care of everybody, men, women, children, right? And then say, if we're not the facility for you, like we're trying to set up one for ourselves as a veteran transformation center, that, hey, we partner with those people that say have done that mission and then implore them into that mission. So it's really cool that you're helping out with that.
Yeah, so it's really kind of interesting. The more networking that I do. So I meet somebody that said, "Oh, you need to talk to this person," or "Oh, you need to talk to that person," and that's really great because we're talking about it. And I have to thank Drexel University, where I got my master's degree from, because they have a very large veteran community there, and the head of the veterans program there has a lot of connections, and she put me in contact with a woman down in Washington, D.C., who's trying to get her own organization off the ground, and she's trying to compile resources state by state, so that even if you're in California and you contact her organization, she can refer you to the appropriate resource in California. But it's a painstaking process, obviously, to try to go state by state and allocate resources. And one of the things that I'm noticing, coming from a nurse, is that for me, this issue is a healthcare issue. It's a healthcare crisis, in my opinion. But and I know, as a healthcare provider, I'm not going to get more staffing or more equipment unless I have data, unless I have evidence to show that we need the funding for the resources. So the data that we have, if you read the white paper on finalsalute.org, you'll notice that they throw out numbers like 4,300 homeless women veterans, 23,000 are unemployed, and women veterans are the highest rising population of homeless, and unemployment among women veterans is rising, and suicide among women veterans is rising rapidly, more so than men. So there's a lot of numbers being thrown out there, but one of the biggest things is that how they count the homeless women veterans is two ways. They do the point in time where basically volunteer civilians are just kind of walking the street and counting homeless people, and then the VA is counting them. But a couple problems with that. Number one, most women are not going to be on the streets sleeping because they're fearing for their safety, and especially if they have children with them, they're going to be couch surfing or sleeping in their cars. So they may have a place to stay, but they're still homeless because they don't have a place of their own. And then, yes, it's nice that the VA is tracking, do you need housing assistance, financial assistance when anybody goes in to use the VA services? But we also know that 82% of women veterans aren't using the VA for their health care. So there's going to be a lot of women who are going to get underrepresented and unsupported. So for me, we need more data. We're not going to get resources unless we have more data. So I'm trying to work with my local hospitals, which is kind of a painstaking process, but I'm trying to reach out to, the chief of nursing at, as many hospitals as possible to say, hey, we need data, and here's my suggestion for grabbing that data. So if women aren't using the VA for their health care and they are homeless or unemployed, they're going to go to free clinics and they're going to go to hospitals for their care. So if we start asking questions of every woman who comes into a non-VA facility for treatment, if we start asking them, did you serve in the U.S. military? Do you need housing or financial assistance? That's going to do two things for us. Number one, it's going to give us data. Most facilities across the country use electronic medical records. So once you enter data into it, EMR, you can pull that data right out, and boom, the more data we have, the better off we're going to be. And once they come in and we say to them, do you need assistance for financial or housing? We can refer them to the Final Salute, number one, which has 3 great programs to help women. Or we can refer them to somebody else. So we got to start somewhere. And in my mind, that's where it's got to be. I mean, I'm not a politician, but I know it's going to be awfully hard to go to a senator or a congressman and beg for more resources for women veterans if we don't even have accurate numbers to give them. And one example of that is in New Jersey. If you look up, homeless veterans in the state, you'll find 551 homeless veterans. That's okay that we know, but how many men versus how many women? Because you can't send women to a men's shelter, especially if they have children. So one of the suggestions that I made to the politicians that I've spoken to is we need to start breaking that data apart, men versus women. And maybe somebody has that number and nobody's reported it out, but we need to start breaking that number down, because then we can at least recognize, okay, we have 200 homeless women veterans. Now we know, okay, we need to start maybe allocating more resources to build safe facilities for women and places for them to go with their children. Because I know, yes, those spots in New Jersey don't allow for children. In Philadelphia, there's Haven Women, which is a shelter for women veterans. But that facility also does not allow children to come. And there's a woman there that I know that she's staying there, and her children living with her mother. So we're, the whole point is to keep families together, and they're separated because mom's got a place to stay, but the kids can't go where she is. And at least they're with family, but kids and moms, they usually want to be together unless they're teenagers and they want no parts of us, which is totally different. But
no, and that's huge in that particular regard. And then having those facilities, even if you have a multi-facility, like our goal with ours is a veteran transformation that, hey, and for that particular regard, it's like you want to have, if you need to, segmented sections, like this is where the men live, this is where the women live. If it's a family units are separated. And then if you have common access areas, those people can then commingle with, that's one thing. Right. But you definitely want to keep those people safe, because there's going to be certain people, like they might be coming from a domestic situation or anything else. So you definitely want to go do that. So that would be empowering to go over and to do that. So I'd love to go and hear, you have so much wisdom and so much information. It's like just dropping everything, and that's great. So if you run into a female veteran or just a veteran in general, what would you give them as superhero tactics to help them to either avoid or to empower them out of this process?
So I think the number one thing that I can say to any veteran, especially women, is, our nature is to power through and not show any signs of weakness. And a lot of women, especially women veterans, see asking for help as a sign of weakness. And I've had to learn myself that asking for help is not a sign of weakness. We all need help from time to time, and nobody can do it alone. I mean, I don't know any man or woman that can tackle every problem in life by themselves. We all need help. And I think asking for help is the first step in relieving that stress, because when you are in a stressful situation, it's real hard for you to think straight and really kind of see the forest through the trees. And asking for help just kind of opens that up and takes that stress off of you. So I think the biggest key for me is getting across to people, because I've learned the hard way myself. Asking for help is probably the best thing that you can do for yourself. There's no reason to suffer in silence and think that you have to do it all by yourself, because nobody can do it. We all need help from time to time.
We all do. So that's really cool. I want to thank you for going over and joining. Where can people go over and connect with you? I have this link over here. So what's this link about, the MVA 2020?
So the MVA is about it's information, it's fundraising, and it's solely dedicated to Final Salute and raising advocacy for homeless women veterans. I've done, some what is Final Salute and talked about that. I've talked about the Miss Veteran America contest, and the Miss Veteran America contest is, a big supporter and fundraiser for Final Salute. And like I said, Final Salute's got Project Home, Project Safe, and Project Next Uniform. And they are all designed to help women find safe and suitable housing, help get them security deposits for rent and grants for paying utilities and clothing, and support to find a new job as they transition out of the military and into civilian life. So they do a lot of great things for women, and I'm proud and honored to be a top 25 finalist and helping Final Salute on their mission of helping homeless women veterans.
That's really cool. So what happens if you win?
So if I win, I become the face of Final Salute, and I get to travel around the country and raise awareness. So the prize is basically public speaking, which I'm more than happy and proud and honored to do. And I've been public speaking for most of my life, and I actually speak at schools on Veterans Day to raise awareness about veterans and what it's like to be in the military, and kind of inspire and motivate youngsters to join the service, and especially be a role model and an inspiration to young girls, because it's really important that girls have a strong female role model to look up to.
So you'll still be an active reservist, and then you register nurse, you take a sabbatical in a sense?
So I work per diem at Virtua, so I'm only required to work 3 shifts in a 6-week period. So, wow. And my work schedule with that piece of things would be manageable. And I'm currently teaching for Drexel University and Gwynedd Mercy University, and those teaching jobs will be completed early December. So the schedule is definitely workable.
Wow. So we'll catch you on a sleep cycle, hopefully one day.
Yeah. So if I win, I'll come back on and I'll give you my schedule.
That's awesome. So I want to thank you for going over and joining, and all our guests going over and joining us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, the Easy Way Wall, which you can go get your digital TV content, even on Roku. We're out there now in 7 different locations. And if you guys are watching, and ladies, whoever you are, we'd like for you for a challenge to give her 3 seconds of your time. We would love for you to watch the whole interview of 20 minutes and 26 seconds and counting. But for her to get uplifted to our digital TV show, streaming through 15 different platforms, hitting about 10 to 14,000 military veterans a week and more, we'd love to have you give 3 seconds of time in the next 3 days, because that's how Facebook works. The algorithm is 3 seconds. So if you're watching on Twitch and the rest of the platforms, that's great. But take 3 seconds to go to Facebook and go watch it, so we can go over and count those. And if she gets the most views in 3 days for 3 seconds of time, again, watch it all, but 3 seconds, 3 days, and then she'll go over and get up with it. Just like Miss Veterans America, she's in the top 25, well, she's in the top 5 right now, because we're only interviewing 5 people. So I want to thank you for going over and joining, and any final words before we close out?
I just want to say thank you, everybody, for listening and watching, and thank you for your time, Dan. We need more people talking about the issue, and we definitely need more women in politics, and we definitely need women veterans in politics, that's for sure. So stay tuned, because you'll probably see me again on the political circuit.
All right, so I'll shake your hand when that happens, or maybe salute and shake, because I got to practice both. All right, well, thank you for joining, everybody. We're going to check out, and we'll see you tomorrow with another Superhero Battle Room story for War Hero to Superhero.